We are looking today to migrate our final microservice to use state machines rather than the old-fashioned sagas. I've also got a lot of emails and stuff to do today, but that's my main target. It's going to be the fiddliest one because this is the one that's consuming events from both of the others. So the others have now been updated, but previously what I was able to do was kind of piecemeal them over, but I'm going to have to update to get the new data in the packages so that I can set up the new stuff, which is going to break all of my old tests. Well, not break all the old tests, make them not compile anymore, which is even worse. So it's just going to be one of them ones which is just going to be like pulling teeth, effectively. But we should be able to hopefully smash it out of the park today. To be fair as well, this is the most complicated. This microservice basically exists to kind of orchestrate what happens next. So it's quite like all of the logic involved in like pulling data from these two different sources is going into this one service. So it's going to be fun. Let's put it that way. I do want to look into a potential issue with my tests as well, where the bus, because I'm starting a message bus in memory, it's not starting up fast enough, I don't think. So in some scenarios, the very first test fails because the bus wasn't there when the event gets put on the bus. So I'm going to see if I can speed that up, make that a little bit more reliable. I hate flaky unit tests, and it's a pain in the ass that you have to test this like this. Like a unit test shouldn't need to spin up an in-memory instance of anything. Well, it's a trade-off, isn't it? Like, technically I'm covering more with this test, but like, it's flakier. It's flakier. Do I care whether or not, like, as part of a unit test, do I care that the in-memory message bus works? No, not really. So, it's annoying, and it's causing me several issues, but it's a necessary evil, unfortunately. Alright, so the big problem I'm having, and it's a biggie, is that, so I'm migrating you're bored of this, I'm migrating my sagas from the old-fashioned saga way of doing it to state machines, because state machines give me a lot more flexibility with the events that I'm raising. The point that I noticed that would be a problem was in this microservice, and I've made design choices in this microservice to get around that fact that I'll need to raise multiple events and track things in multiple sagas in order to get things working properly, and it complicates things quite significantly. And I'm looking at a load of events and commands that are being raised. I'm like, technically I don't need that. Do I get anything from having this extra step? And that's kind of the problem I'm at now, where the candidate, like, god damn, man. I remember this being just an absolute pig to figure out when I wanted to, like, do this. I remember getting such a mess trying to figure out, like, kind of how to manage the state of this thing that spawns multiple things, this thing that could be created and replaced. Originally, I like kind of got around that by having a static ID for that thing, and it always matched that thing. And then, like I say, having kind of 3 steps that raise events between each other. But now that I've got a way around it, now that I've got like simpler methods, and I don't have the limitations of the previous system, like it's really obvious that this is a bad design, you know? Like, it was an alright design given the limitations that I had, but it's not. I'm just trying to figure out, Laura's on her way home. Trying to figure out where she is. She's there. I'll start dinner. Words. So yeah, it's a good design for the limitations I used to have. Now I don't have those limitations. It's a bad design. It was always a bad design overall, but it worked with the limitations. Now I don't have the limitations. It's really obvious it's a bad design, and it's almost a worse design now the limitations are gone. I feel like I need to re-plan this. This isn't as easy as just copy and paste. I mean, I could just copy and paste it, but I'm going to end up having to integrate and do a lot of work with this thing anyway. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to walk the line. I'm doing this quite a lot, balancing act of pushing forward but not cutting too many corners. Like, I've already raised a couple of things that I'm like, I want to be aware of this in the future. This could be a problem, but we can move on for now. I think we're going to be okay. But like, make a note, you know? There's a fine balancing act between like trying to finesse everything so it's perfect and not skipping too much, you know? And I feel like this is one of those things where you can't just jump into it and get it, like, kind of polish it over. I need to figure out what each saga's job is and then kind of reverse engineer it from there. So I think I'm going to use some whiteboard. I'm going to step away, do dinner, and come back to it. But yeah, I remember like kind of going around and round and round and round in circles trying to get this right in my head previously. So it's not going to be too easy to do it again this time, you know. But it should be easier now I've got slightly more information, because I can now just raise an event over there, and then even though my correlation ID is usually the ID of this thing, I know the ID of that thing correlates to, so I can take your messages because I know of that link. I could never do that before. Whereas previously I literally had another saga that exists effectively just to fire off that event. So it makes it a lot simpler, but yeah, obviously not, because I need to redesign it. But so last night I did a little bit of post-it noting and figuring out where I was going wrong with what I was trying to do. And I'm now in one of those positions where I need to change like how it's going to work. I'm going to model something I did on a newer microservice, which I think makes a lot more sense in this scenario. It's almost over-engineered for the new microservice, but it's kind of what I need for this microservice, you know what I mean? It will drastically reduce the amount of events that I need to raise. It would reduce the chances of data sync issues, all that kind of stuff. The problem is, it's quite a drastic change. And it's one of those changes where like, maybe like 40% of everything I've already got is good and I can reuse. But like a lot of the like gluing together, it's almost like trying to replace a skeleton. It's like trying to get a living human and build a dog out of it without killing it, and like rebuilding the skeleton around, you know? Like I can use some of the bones still, but what I'm building is different. And it's almost worse than just starting from scratch. That's a shit analogy, but you know what I'm saying? It's probably harder to turn... Oh, come on, there's a good analogy here somewhere. It's probably harder to turn a coat into a t-shirt. No, a hoodie into a t-shirt than it is to just build a t-shirt again from scratch. But building a t-shirt again from scratch is a lot of work. You could reuse like the arm of the hoodie. You just need to solve this bit in the middle, you know? There is an analogy there somewhere. So I've had this issue before, New Day, where I'm doing tests, I'm writing automation tests around a saga, and it runs fine most of the time, but every now and again, when it tests the saga state, so the saga state, you've got a correlation ID, which is used to pull the data out of the database, effectively. Then you have a number of properties which you can set on the thing. Like, they're all custom, so you can have whatever you want on there. It's just a standard object, right? Now, often I have the correlation ID being one of the other properties. So in the database, it appears as like _ID. And then I have another field which is arguably superfluous. So in this case, the saga is for a candidate. So I have a field called candidate ID. Why did I always do that? I'm not really sure. But interestingly, every now and again, I'll run the tests. And this has happened before I did the rewrite to the new way of doing it and after now, where it will pull the whole thing out of the database using the correlation ID, which is the candidate ID, test all of the fields on the property. They'll all be correct, except the candidate ID, which hasn't been set. And there's no like link between the candidate ID and the correlation ID. Like effectively, I have one property that says, one method that says set these 4 items, of which one of them has to be the candidate ID. The correlation ID is automatically set. So why why is it that just one of the properties doesn't set sometimes every now and again for YOLO swags? I don't know. And I'm trying to write like an issue on GitHub because I'm like, I feel like this is an issue with the in-memory mass transit thing, in-memory test harness, because I've never had it in a real database. I've only ever had it in automation tests, and it could be to do with the speed at which I'm trying to pull out data. But it doesn't make sense that every single field is set except that one. But it's happened more than once now. Arguably the field is irrelevant. But why is the candidate ID not set, but the party ID is set? And so is the repository ID. And the snapshots are all there, and the state's correct, and the last updated field is correct. What? So everything's been set, it's just not that one field, isn't it? I don't get it. I can't think of a single logical explanation as to why that's happening. Because if that's not being set, then surely none of it's being set. So then again, I've just taken out the correlation ID. See? So I've just taken out the correlation, the candidate ID, and now it's failing on the next ID. That's a GUID. And it's saying it's not set, but everything else is set. Why? Why you do this? So my running theory is that it takes about half a beat. Ding, success. It takes about half a beat for the... So it creates an instance in the repository, into the in-memory repository, puts the data in there, creates the instance, and then it populates the properties within it. Now, for whatever reason, GUIDs take half a beat longer than everything else. Spurious, I know, right? But I've never seen it happen with something that's not a GUID. Ever, right? So, what it does is, as I'm sat waiting for it to appear, as soon as it appears, I grab it out and then start to do some validation on it. In the time it takes me to do that, the other properties are being set, but the GUID, because it takes half a bit longer, isn't being set till after. Then the exception pipeline for catching the first GUID failure is long enough for the rest to pass. Having said that, I would nearly 9 times out of 10 always assert the GUID first. And if those assertions aren't being done in parallel, then in theory, the half beat it takes to do the assertion on the value and or catch the fault that's thrown by it, maybe that's enough for everything else to be set. And therefore, basically, the first thing I ever assert is there's just half a beat like catch in between them, you know? But that makes a lot more sense, to be honest. So it's like the thing being created in the repository isn't enough. It's created and then populated. It's not inputted, populated, and therefore I'm pulling it out as it's inserted before the values are set and then asserting them in order. And in order, the ID is always at the top, so it's GUID. That's why the GUID's gone. The correlation ID will be set because that's set on insert, because that is the indexed key. That makes a lot more sense. I'm trying to think of I've got a fix for it, ATM. I'm just trying to think of a nicer fix. Because it's a bit filthy, my current little hackaroo that makes it work. But it's lunchtime, so... That explains it much more than what I thought. Getting over my head there, thinking that GUIDs are more aggressive. It's just that it's not inserted atomically. Which is why it's always the initialization one that fails, not any of the other ones. Okay, cool, problem solved. Problem identified. Just got to solve the actual solution of when it's like kind of finished being worked on and then pulling it out of the database. It's gonna be a bit harder, but we'll see. We'll see how that works. Sandwich time, boys. Today didn't quite go to plan. We should have seen it wasn't going to go to plan early on when we tried to book some cinema tickets. I couldn't book them on my computer because it couldn't log me into my account on the website, and then Laura did it and then accidentally booked it for Hull, which is a long way away. That's ring them up and say, we've done it for the wrong cinema, can you rearrange it for Bristol? Thank you. We then had a day in. I've been working on, I've been motoring through actually the next little bit of user story. I'm now marking snapshots for individual analysis, which is good. And they only get marked for analysis, they only get marked for further analysis when they're ready and all that kind of stuff. That's what I've been doing today. Basically almost there. I want to run it on Atlas, and I've got some last minute integration stuff to do on the final snapshot stuff. And I have another user story to create a thing for, ignore that. Despite drastically underestimating how long it would take me to get rid of correlation IDs, I'm basically there. I've got one, like I say, I should be able to finish this user story. I don't think I'll get the next user story in, even though it's relatively small, because I'll rather focus on planning so that I'm ready for next week, because next week's going to be busy. Anyway, so it was in there with the fire on, living the dream. We had some dinner. We've pre-made tomorrow's dinner, which is something we've made, it's slow cooked, but you like make it the night before and then fridge it. Oh God, it smells really garlicky as well, man. Jeez. Anyway, so we went to go to the cinema at 9:15 at night. Car wouldn't start. Ah, fuck. So yeah, that put a stopper to that boy. So we watched A Theory of Everything, which was a bad idea because Laura's been weeping. And we need to figure out what's going down with the car. It's either short-circuiting or a flat battery. Either way, it's not good because it probably means the alternator's not very good. Obviously, we don't drive the car as much now than we used to, but I mean, we drove it to Nottingham and Norfolk very recently, so that should be enough to charge the battery. But it could just be a dead battery. Obviously, we've had the car for a while. We've never changed the battery, so either way, not great. I have to figure out how to jumpstart it, which Laura doesn't like the idea of bumping it, because I was like, let's try and bump it. Doesn't like that idea. We might be able to take it to Halfords and put a new battery in it tomorrow, maybe, if I can talk Laura into bumping it while I push it. YOLO. But anyway, yeah, it's been today. Tomorrow's going to be much the same. It's very worky recently, and then this week is going to be very worky continuance as well. So, living the dream, boys. Pretty unproductive day today so far, boys. Done a bit of work on my laptop downstairs, but not feeling it today. Beth and Ben came round and helped us jumpstart our car. I took it for a drive around to try and charge the battery, and I'm taking it somewhere else. Taking it somewhere tomorrow to get the either the battery replaced. I'm getting a battery check because I feel like the battery isn't holding its charge, or the alternator's gone. Looking forward to that. But it's due an MOT, so we're going to get it MOT'd and serviced this week, and then hopefully we can avoid. Hopefully we can pay for it all in one big thing rather than like kind of paying two different people 2 times the amount of time and work, you know. So, but yeah, I'm going to call my garage man tomorrow. Otherwise, it's just been pretty shit weekend. So I'm going to put some pajamas on. We're probably going to play some Xbox and just try and chill, you know. So we had a pretty shitty weekend. Both me and Laura both had a pretty shitty weekend. And last week was pretty like shitty and flat as well. So we are trying our best. What can I say for a drink? Oh, shoes. Do I have a spare glass around? We are trying our hardest to start this week off right. I've officially started sending out my emails to try and garner interest in Varialis and or Radspider, depending on who I'm emailing. They have started today my email campaign. Emailed 5 people, 2 different companies. Tomorrow we've got another 2 different companies. Day after that, another 2 different companies, and then chaser emails from today, and it starts to like build up. So we're doing a lot of stuff now that isn't just development. And I'm trying to get meetings with people so that I can better understand how I can shape Radspider to meet their needs. That's my like goal. That's the reason I'm messaging. I'm not emailing them to try and sell Radspider. I just want to understand how they work and like kind of what Radspider would have to do to be used by them, you know? I'm trying to find potential early adopters, but not necessarily sales. Otherwise, it's a wet and miserable day, very fucking rainy and windy, so it's going to get a bit nippy. We have shopping's being delivered tonight, which is good, but I need to call the garage to get my car booked in for an MOT. I've booked it in to get its battery tested, and I'm trying to decide whether or not that's worth it. I think I'll figure that out post calling and booking in for MOT. It depends when we can get the MOT done. If it's like tomorrow, then I'll probably not bother. But if it isn't, then we might need the car. It's very stressful. It's been a stressful week, to be honest with you. We're trying to I'm doing what I normally do when I get stressed, which is picking, just launching full force into absolutely everything all at once. So yeah, all my emails are done and out of the way. Bang. I'm now going to do a load of programming before 10 o'clock where I'm going to have a cup of tea and I'm going to make my phone calls. But yeah. Right, boys, I have finally wrapped my head around the state management for snapshots in one of my microservices. It's a bit of a bitch. It's confusing because there's 3 different things that all in their own right should modify the state, but they all can't, you know what I mean? Because there's 3 of them. And they're all kind of valid when they're in certain scenarios. So it's it gets registered, then it gets linked, updates can be registered against it, and it can be marked for analysis all at different points. And all of them are technically valid, and it should be able to catch up if it does one before the other and all that kind of stuff. Finally wrapped my head around that. I need to do some minor changes to adding the files, to modifying it on files individually. I then also have rolled through my emails. All my emails have been sent this morning, sorted out the car stuff, that's all fine. We're on a roll, we're working well, we're doing well. I'm gonna have some lunch, and then we are gonna get back into it, boy. It's interesting because I've got things to check off again now, obviously, but what I can't do is I've got to still kind of try and stay ahead and not kind of just have this big old list and just chip it down. I've got to get ahead on the next couple of things that are coming up and then try and keep adding things to the end of this big old list and all that kind of shit. So it's good fun, man. It's good fun. So yeah. There's a storm about, I think it's called Brandon? But it probably means that my walks are going to be a bit few and far between over the next couple of friggin' days. So got that to look forward to. But it's also whipping around outside, and it's bloody windy and bloody rainy as well, so it's pretty goddamn cold. I've got my hot water bottle back in action. I've just taken my half-hour break, which was, I just played a bit of Hearthstone and watched some TV, chilled out. Started the next chunk of work. I need to do some planning for the next bit, but I will do that in a minute. What was I going to say? I was going to say something else. Yeah, I need to do some planning on the stuff that I'm doing next, because I've been getting all these sagas up and ready to trigger something, and they're about to trigger it. And I've got the user stories, but I haven't got the tasks set out for how I'm going to go about kicking it all off yet. But I'm almost done on the next user story along, which should have technically been done in the last sprint, but wasn't because I drastically misunderestimated how much effort it was going to be to migrate to state machines. There was something else I was going to say, man, as well. I mean, I have never seen rain this hard before. Sometimes when it's so foggy that you can't see, visibility is impaired by fog. It's impaired by the rain right now, fam. Holy shit. It is so fucking... My lord. They came down so heavily there, I almost went outside to check that our drain wasn't blocked. So because I could see it kind of coming up and starting to come towards the house. I mean, it'd have to rain a lot for it to get in, but if there's leaves or something in the drain, then that's not going to help, you know? So I just flicked the light on. By the time I got the light on and we found some wellies, it drained away. So we're doing good. It's half stopped now. Laura's not back yet. Laura's got blood donors as well. She's gonna be wet. All right then, boys. Figured this out. I know what my game plan is, and I know how to do it. which is all great. The next user story is going to be more of a agile sprint thing. It's going to be like PowerShell driven and all this shit. So I'm not entirely sure how that next step is going to work. Like, I don't want it to work how my previous ones have worked. I want to run a proper container rather than build them. And I think I can pull that off, but we'll see. So I've got my next user story for the sprint, and then the final user story of the sprint is going to be effectively a Kanban process of figuring out how this next bit works. It stopped raining, so hopefully Laura can go to blood donors and not get absolutely drenched. I'm feeling the consequences of not going for a walk. I don't see the point in starting any programming now. So I'm trying to decide what to do while I wait for Laura. I think I'm probably going to do some emails and stuff. I need to do some research, actually. I'm going to do some research, but I don't know how to... that's not really something I can time. But let's do some Googling. I need to identify more... There's one company that I know of, and I have like semi-close relations to. I need more companies like that company in like a similar sector, you know? And I'm going to call it there, ladies and gentlemen. We had our food shop delivered. I haven't tested the car yet, but hopefully it works tomorrow morning. I've asked if my neighbour's around. He's got a thing that will zap it, but he says, I'd let you borrow it, but if you do it wrong, then it can be like, do a lot of damage. So I'm like, okay. I'm 90% sure the car will just start, but you never know. It did kick in quite quickly. Blimey. It did kick in quite quickly when we zapped it last time, so it'll be fine. We'll take it to the garage. My boy will just swap out battery, put a new battery in, and it will be okay. It's not going to be the alternator, it's going to be nothing like that. But yeah, live the dream. But yeah, otherwise, I'm going to end it. So, have we done anything else? Oh, tactic as well. If you want to research, find companies that are similar to a certain company and they're niche enough, find where their head office is, and then just like zoom out a little bit on the map and look what companies are around them. They always seem to be similar because then they can like poach each other's staff. So I found a couple of more companies that match that one that I was talking about earlier. Happy days. Right, tomorrow's going to be busy. The next couple of days are going to be busy, to be fair. Let's go. It's going to be fun. I'll catch you later.